4, 5, and 6, we're solving ones again with absolute values. So the first thing we need to do is do whatever it takes to get the absolute value part by itself. If I look at that first one, if I want to get the absolute value by itself, the first thing I want to do is move that 7 to the other side, right? Since I have this plus 7 next to it. So I'm going to minus my 7, and I'm going to have 6 times the absolute value of W minus 4 is less than 12. Then the absolute value still isn't by itself because there's a 6 in front of the absolute value. To get rid of that 6, I have to divide by that 6. So now I have the absolute value of W minus 4 is less than 2. So once I get it that far, now the problem is just like the previous ones. I have an absolute value problem. I've got to do 2 different problems. My first problem should just be the same thing without the absolute value. W minus 4 is less than 2. My second problem, I've got to flip my sign and do the negative. So W minus 4 is going to be greater than negative 2. And then I solve each of those. So, solving those, I'm just going to add my 4 to move it to the other side. Plus 4. W is less than 6. Over here, if I add my 4, W is greater than 2. Now, I have to decide, should I connect those 2 things with the word and or the word or? And would mean I'm shading in the middle of the 2 dots when I graph. Or means I'm shading on the 2 outsides. So if I was just thinking about my number line like I did on the previous one, 6 and 2, I'd have an open circle on the 2 and an open circle on the 6. I'm less than the 2, greater than the 6. I'm between my 2 dots, right? If I'm between my 2 dots, I'm going to connect these 2 things with the word and. So if you're in the middle, you connect them with and. If it's the 2 outsides, you're going to connect them with an or. Number 5 says the absolute value of 5y plus 22 is greater than or equal to 28. I want to get the absolute value by itself. So on this one, I've got to move my plus 22 to the other side. Since it's a plus 22, we're going to minus 22. So absolute value of 5y is greater than or equal to 6. And this one is a little different than the previous one. Notice that my 5 is in the absolute values. So I already have the absolute value by itself. I'm going to do my 2 separate cases. My first case, the 5y is greater than or equal to 6. My second case, I'm going to flip my inequality when I make that negative. So 5y is less than or equal to negative 6. I then just have to solve each of those inequalities by dividing by my 5. Y is greater than or equal to 6/5. Y is less than or equal to negative 6/5. I then have to decide, am I connecting those with the and or the or? And is when you shade in the middle, or is when you shade the opposite direction. So if I just think of my number line, positive 6/5 would be on this side, negative 6/5 would be on this side. I am greater than my positive 6/5. I am less than or equal to my negative 6/5. So I ended up shading the 2 opposite sides. I'm going to connect those with the word or. So just like on those previous ones when we graphed them, if it was a less than or equal to, we're shading in the middle, so we use the word and between our 2 expressions. If we have a greater than or equal to, I'm shading the 2 outsides, so we use the word or between our 2 expressions. You'll notice on the Alex explanation that they combined the and into one statement. Don't worry about doing that. Just put and or between them depending on which one you have. Number 6 then, if we're going to solve that one. First thing I want to do is
you want to take the 3 and minus
Yep.
15 minus 3.
So 2 times the absolute value of u plus 8 is less than negative 20. Then I want to do what?
Then you want to divide that negative 20 by 2?
Exactly. Because that's out in front. So absolute value of u plus 8 is less than negative 10. Now, what do we know about absolute values? Absolute values are distances. This is saying what numbers are less than negative 10. Can an absolute value be less than a negative number?
I would think so.
No, because absolute values are always positive, and positives can't be less than negatives. So my answer is I can't do that one. No solution.
No.
Right? Remember before we had those ones where we had the absolute value of 2x plus 8 equals negative 10? And it was the same thing? Absolute values have to be positive numbers. So,
Yeah.
yep. So we get a no solution on that one.